Okay, welcome back, everyone. This happens, very rookie mistake. We are having a very interesting conversation, a very interesting panel on digital transformation, decentralized cities, governments, technology, and a sustainable future in this virtual version of the Campus Party 2022. My name is Sergio mastrogiovanni, and I'll be moderating this panel and interesting conversation on decentralized government and smart cities. And we have here two of the most respected authorities in the field. I'm going to introduce them starting in alphabetical order with Diego Fernández. Diego is the Secretary of Innovation and Digital Transformation in the Buenos Aires city government. He is passionate about technology, transformations, and great challenges. He has a wealth of experience in the private and public sector and has worked in Buenos Aires city government since 2010, working on education, urban planning, and now he's leading the Secretary of Innovation and Digital Transformation. Welcome, Diego. And then we have Stefan Junestrand. Stefan holds a PhD in architecture, and he's an expert in smart cities, intelligent buildings, sustainability, and blockchain. He is also the CEO and co-founder of Grupo Tecmared, Spain's leading editorial company about sustainability, energy, and new technologies for the built environment, and he is also a strategic advisor for the public administration and private companies and teaches at several universities. Welcome, Stefan. Thank you both for being here. I'm delighted to have this very interesting conversation on the topic. And I would like to start with a question for you both, whoever wants to pick it first, that is about what we learned in the last 2 years, right? How can we tie sustainability and the lessons learned from COVID-19, tying technology, sustainability, and governance, right? Who wants to share a reflection?
I can start.
Stefan, please.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, answering that question, I think that the biggest and most important lesson from the pandemic has been that people working from their homes instead of going to their offices actually works very well for most organizations. And I believe that this is the most important lesson because to implement telework on a broad scale is the fastest single action we can take to reach the sustainability development goals. And just some examples why teleworks help to reach the SDGs. On one hand, it reduces traffic, which causes 40% of the carbon emissions in our cities. It permits to conciliate work and family life since it saves more than an hour a day in transportation for most people, and that people can still work even though they must be home, for example, with a sick child. And on the other hand, it repopulates, if we are strategic, rural areas, as people can live there and work wherever they want. And also it strengthens the local communities as people spend more time in and around their homes. But sadly, maybe what we have seen now is that most companies and even the public administrations are going back full time to the offices, instead of, for example, implementing models for flexible work where you can work from home at least 3-4 days a week or 5 for those who wants to and live in rural areas. You can invest more in high-speed telecommunications, especially in those rural areas that need that. And we also need to implement even better digital tools for remote collaboration, where we really can be creative and collaborate on better ways than tools like Teams, etc., can permit us to do. And we also have to improve the logistics for e-commerce that is growing with the telework, and to incentivize telework economically instead of going to the office. So I think that the biggest lesson we have learned from the COVID is that we have seen that teleworks very well, but unfortunately, we have not yet been able to take the full advantage of it. But I really hope that in a soon future, we will be able to do that on a broader scale.
Yeah, it necessarily drove digital adoption. About that, Diego, what can you tell me about the role of the government in this new digital world? And what is Buenos Aires City doing about this? I know that you guys implemented a lot of tools and chatbots probably to drive or improve the communication with the citizen.
Well, I mean, this last 2 years since pandemic struck us in March 2020, we were forced as a government to change with this new reality and being unable to communicate directly with citizens, which was a usual physical way that we all did things in our personal and professional lives, posed quite a challenge. Over that, when we started with these massive testing models and after that massive vaccination models, we were forced to come up with a way of getting in touch with citizens easily, faster. We didn't have time nor resources to start developing new platforms. So I think that we took a very bold idea and we mounted, or actually we already had it in place, but we made a great deal of development on top of a chatbot in WhatsApp. The chatbot is named Boti, and actually it became quite a rock star because I mean all the population started chatting with the chatbot, requesting appointments for testing and inquiring about the vaccination status of each member of the family. Uh, we we came from 500,000 conversations per month pre-pandemic to 8 million conversations per month last month because of this new
Wow, that's
Omicron.
huge.
It's amazing. It's amazing. And actually, this was a beautiful discovery because we started migrating most of our interactions with the citizens to the chatbot. And why is that? Because it's much more effective. It's in natural language. We're incorporating voice and eventually video this year. People don't need to go to an application or to a website. They just use the same chat tool that they use every day to speak with their family and friends, and they can get in touch with the government, request information, ask for appointments, services, and whatever. And that was for us honestly a pretty successful way of getting out of that particular issue within the pandemic.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Stefan, you wrote many articles and you probably are an expert in what is blockchain and emerging technologies. So, what are the probably the technologies that are transforming cities, and how can we tie this with the UN sustainable, with the famous SDGs, UN Sustainable Development Goals? What are your
Yeah.
thoughts on that?
Well, without doubt, I think the biggest challenge for us cities and us as citizens is to reach those sustainable development goals in the year 2030, which is established by the United Nations. And to achieve that, we will need to radically change many aspects of our lives, including the way we work, the way we learn, travel, consume, entertain ourselves, etc. The good news is that it is doable, but to do this in a holistic way, which means that we can advance from the social, economic, and environment perspective at the same time, we need to apply a broad use of new technologies such as 5G, IoT, artificial intelligence, etc. Because these technologies will enable the necessary transformation of solutions and services to reach the sustainable development goals. For example, we need 5G to be able to manage self-driving cars or vehicles in general within the cities, because only 5G can provide the necessary fast communication for that. And we need, for example, artificial intelligence to take the best decisions of where to spend the public investments in many areas, like in the health sector or environmental or social welfare, etc. We need that help. And we need IoT to monitor our environment to assure the quality of air and water, etc. And it's obvious, I think it's obvious and very positive that all these new services that will grow around the implementation of new technologies, not only the ones that I mentioned, but many others, are huge opportunities for innovation and work during actually a long future. So I would say it's that.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I know that you both are at least made yourselves kind of expert on what is blockchain, decentralized operation. So about that, what you guys think, or you, Diego, think that is the lowest hanging fruit, or what is the something that we can expect to see in the upcoming years or 2 years implemented, and what is the biggest impact that we can see, for example, with blockchain in a decentralized operation?
I will put this in three different aspects. I think that one of the lowest hanging fruits, I heard Stefan mention it in one of his talks, it will probably be putting monitors for climate, weather, and CO2 emissions all over the city, and everyone will be sure that those recordings are verified and are immutable, and everybody will have access to that information. That would be pretty cool, and it will probably have a big impact because society will start to be more conscious about what they are doing and how they are living in their particular communities. I would then say that in my humble opinion, the first step that we should take is starting to give citizens identities based on blockchain. That may seem kind of controversial because, hey, you guys are government, you give out central identities. Why do you need a decentralized network? And the world that I envision, at least for in the upcoming future, is a world in which centralization and decentralization both combine their efforts. And of course, we issue identities, but there are a lot of layers in the identity where decentralization takes a big role. For example, verified credentials. We give credentials as a government, but private institutions need to give credentials, and those credentials need to be immutable. And there's a third layer, which for me is crucial, which is the reputational identity. Today, we're used to assuming that the reputation that we hold with merchants, with vendors, with banks, belong to the merchants, to the vendors, to the banks. And let me tell you, that's not true. Those reputations belong to us, and we need to be able of managing that reputation. And I think that this first step, I mean, that I mentioned is crucial, giving citizens digital identities based on blockchain. And the third and more crucial part of it, and the most complex part, having that we have digital identities, is for sure getting rid of part of the bureaucracy. And why I say this? Because blockchain is the digital automatic bureaucracy. Blockchain does by code what we today do by hand. That will take time. It will happen tomorrow, sorry. But definitely that's the way society is moving with this new technology, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's very interesting, and that also brings a very interesting conversation about who owns the data, right? That is something that we are talking. We have 5 companies that owns our data, our lives, and so on. So in line with that, probably we are having a very interesting approach to the virtual life, right? I would be very interested in understanding, or at least having your thoughts, especially Stefan, about what is Metaverse, right? In the last month, this something that came, and we are having this buzz or hype around this. I would love to have your thoughts, Stefan, about what is the Metaverse and how can we relate this to what we call intelligent smart cities.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting area for smart cities, and Metaverse is opening up now. And it's actually the concept. It refers to a digital world, parallel and interconnected to our physical world. And in the Metaverse, we can socialize with other people, entertain ourselves, but we can also work professionally, for example. And the metaverse, in difference from other virtual worlds in general, or gaming and so on, it has a crypto economy within it that permits us to merge the physical and digital world, and also make business, etc., in a transparent and open way, which can flow between the physical and digital worlds. So, and from a spatial perspective, the metaverse can be applied in two ways, in two environments. One is a pure virtual world, which can be experienced through, for example, virtual reality headsets. And there exists, those worlds exist. It's like sandbox and etc. And you can build there. So, but on the other hand, we can experience the metaverse in what's called a mixed reality through, for example, glasses that permits us to see both the physical world, but with a layer above of a digital world. That's called mixed reality or augmented reality. There are different worlds. And from a smart city perspective, I think this mixed reality is the most interesting, as it will occur within our cities, also within the public spaces. So there are so many ways to apply this within a city, but people using these glasses that will be that exists and will be even very, very common within the next years, they can see a lot more information than just a visual one, because they can see layers above. For example, what we saw a couple of years ago with the Pokemons, that only with the glasses you could see those Pokemons on the street. But you can imagine yourself walking up a street where you can see different kind of facades. So the facade, for example, can be substituted. A Zara store, for example, they want to make something commercials outside that store, or have people moving outside that store, showing a virtual clothes on the sidewalk. We can do a lot of cultural activities. That means that we can, for example, in a park, we can have people playing, you can have animals, you can, in virtual animals, you can also apply this for, apart from entertainment, for business, and in so many different ways. But I think also the cities have to provide services and think about how these will be used in the metaverse and not only in the physical world. Because there's a lot of information that has to be provided to the citizens, and a lot of citizens that will spend a lot of time within the metaverse. So, and also I think it's important that the cities, when they plan and they think of their cities, they should be aware that it's not only a physical space, but also a digital space. For example, you have to regulate this space and put some limits on how it could be used, because for example, if we imagine a concert, somebody is in the metaverse putting up a concert on a big square, and it comes 100,000 people to listen to this famous artist, which they can only see with their glasses on, but they can see and experience that concert. That will be is a disruptive thing. It will stop the traffic. It will be so many problems with the public transportation and so on, because you have to be there to see this. So we have to think about how to approach the metaverse from a city regulation perspective. We have to actively participate, because that's the only way we can learn about the metaverse, how it's being applied, etc. So it offers huge opportunities, and there's an urgent need for people from a wide range of professionals capable to develop and manage these solutions. And there will be a need for not only for designers, but anthropologists, sociologists, lawyers, economists, social media people, and so on. So I think the people like listening to this talk should definitely explore the possibilities that the metaverses, different metaverses offers today. And there are metaverses that belongs to companies like enterprises, like Facebook, Microsoft, etc. But there are also a lot of other metaverses on the blockchain that permits a participation and creativities from absolutely anybody who wants to be there and participate actively.
Yeah, that's very interesting and promising. Stefan brings very interesting point, Diego. What do you think that is the role of the government or the state? First, regulating, and there are many open conversations, not just in Buenos Aires and Argentina, but also in the whole world about taxing crypto, for example, or taxing this operation or decentralized operation. What are your thoughts on this? What is the role of the government, or what should be a role? This is actually a moving target, right? This is something that is still being discussed. And we are having many open conversations.
Well, first, I want to make our international audience a little explanation about this thing that I have in my hand, which is called mate, which is a very South American costume. I mean, we drink mate half day long, so this may sound strange, but it's very popular here in my country. Having said this, to be honest, I don't think I have a direct answer for that. I just would like to share my thoughts. I honestly think that internet plus blockchain, and I put those two together because in the future, I don't know, 200 years from now, I guess that internet and blockchain will be seen as the same occurrence in time. I mean, these 20 years that separates one from the other will be seen just as a process of transformation. I think that we as a race have experienced two major, let's say, tidal changes event, which is the printing press and internet plus blockchain. Printing press transformed the state or the institutions and the governments in the 1500s. Catholic Church had a complete control over information. They decided who was able of reading, who was able of writing and sharing information. And the printing press completely destroyed that and made information available to anyone. In today's model, which was created after the appearance of the printing press and the appearance of nation states, in today's model, which is the model created in 1643 in Westphalia, states rule over every social transaction in the citizenship. They give you a birth certificate, they give you an ID, we give you a driver's license, we validate every transaction that you make when you sell a car, when you buy a house, when you get married, when you get divorced, when you die. State is omnipresent in everything that you need to be able of certifying against others. And what blockchains bring is a new way of doing that. So the role of government will necessarily have to change. In many of the things that we governments do today, we are kind of a telephone company from the 80s, switching cables from one plug to the other, and WhatsApp and Telegram have just appeared. So how much time will take the society to adopt WhatsApp and Telegram? The role that we as governments will take is something that needs to be discussed. The first reaction is, hey, let's regulate this. But it's something quite very difficult to regulate, because the only point that you have to regulate that is when you put your money within a formal bank. Okay, but eventually you won't do it. So I don't have a clear perspective on how we should treat this. My first approach would be, hey, don't mess with success. This is working. Don't start regulating it. I'm not sure that we can have a point saying, hey, regulate this, regulate that. I think that we need to start involving ourselves, doing what we need to do, which is simplifying the way that we interact with citizens using this new technology, this new blockchain technology, and see how things start to evolve. I think that government regulations have not done a very good deal to development in general.
Yeah, and I personally think that this is actually just the opposite, right? And sometimes this technology help probably people trust in governments, right? Actually, it's all about trust. Blockchain is a decentralized network and works with trust, right? So, Stefan, you wrote an entire chapter, a book about blockchain and smart cities, right? So I would love to have your thoughts about how this works in the public sector and the private sector, and what is the trade-off, and probably how will citizens relate to this, right?
Yeah. Well, as Diego said, blockchain can be applied in so many different ways, and he gave really good examples. I think blockchain for a smart city can really be applied in a broad range. One starting point is where Diego started now with the government, all the kind of public services that apart from him what he mentioned, for example, what the qualities of blockchain actually, that it's transparent, that it's cyber secure, and that it's immutable, and those are qualities that so many governments on all levels lack because there is corruption, etc. So applying blockchain per se is to taking a step towards transparency and immutability, and we can see that in many kind of applications within the services that the governments provide. But even in, for example, in blockchain can be applied also for voting and for elections and so on. So we can, but it's really difficult to change politics because there's so many interests, and I think everybody could see the advantages of digital voting and with your mobile phone, etc. But for example, in the latest elections in the European Union, only one country permitted elections with a mobile phone, and in certain circumstances. So it's pathetic. But I also think that blockchain can be applied in so many different kind of areas, like for the mobility, it's the traceability in the transportation. What Diego said about the transparency and in the data provided by the cities, the measurements, for example, about air qualities, water qualities, and so on, and to make those immutable and transparent. It's very useful for the data and the information towards the citizens. But we can use blockchain for really huge areas and applications. So I think it's a really interesting technology. And of course, there are critics about the consumption of energy and so on, but there are only some kinds of blockchain solutions that actually consume that huge number of huge quantities of energy, and this ongoing technologies towards other solutions that consume far less. And I think that's something that will get sold very, very soon. So that's sort of an overview of smart city applications. But if you want, we can pick up on discussing also the web thing that Diego mentioned. I think that's interesting.
Yeah, I would love to. Actually, I would like to have your thoughts on. I know we've been discussing the pros of having these many technologies, mainly blockchain, supporting or enabling in smart cities. But what are your thoughts on the cons? Are the challenges that you both see with these technologies in implemented in cities? Is digital, is education, is adoption? What do you guys think that are the challenges that we have?
Uh, to be honest, I think that the challenge is systemic. Uh, we are sort of in a kind of perfect storm. Storm in the meaning, I think what is happening is amazing. It's wonderful. It's very positive, but it's very difficult because there are lots of things changing in a radical way at the same time. We have what Stefan mentioned at the beginning of this panel regarding telework. We have people moving to the rural areas and perhaps leaving part of the cities. We're suffering that in Buenos Aires. The downtown of Buenos Aires is pretty empty today, and we're starting to promote public policies in order to bring society back to living instead of working, but to live in downtown. So telework, cities changing their forms, demand for cities also mutating, and the role of government starting to be in question, and the governance model that we are in, which is mainly democracy, also suffering from society needing and wanting something different. Let me do a small point on this. We are used to vote several times a day. So each time that we are on social network, whichever social network, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, whatever system, we always vote. We say like, don't like, don't like. But when we refer to governments, to what is happening in our community, in our city, we are only able of voting once every 2 years. And that will need to change. I mean, the governance of cities, the governance of countries will forcefully need to change. Why? Because society today is used to acting differently and will demand a change in how it decides their future. And I think that, I mean, the future will be great. For me, the main challenge, the main menace that we face is, hey, these changes need to occur in a timely fashion, in a proper fashion, and we have the risk of seeing these changes in a critical and very, very chaotic way. And that is something that we need to avoid as a government, as a society, as a race.
Yeah, really, I'm sorry. If I can jump on that.
Go ahead, Stefan.
I really agree with Diego. It's a perfect storm. There's so many things going on, and there are huge challenges from a governmental perspective, because first, I think Buenos Aires is one of the few cities in the world that actually have people like Diego that know about blockchain, that understand it in a deeper level, and can have a strategic view how to apply it, the pros and cons and so on. So there's a huge lack of knowledge within the government on all levels about blockchain, artificial intelligence, crypto. It's like that's a huge problem, actually. So the cons with this is that it will be tried to be controlled by people that actually don't know what it is. So that's the biggest con. Technology itself, I wouldn't say there are actually any cons with the technology, because technology depends on how we apply it. But I think it's a super interesting moment now, because such as Diego said, it's for the public administration, there's coming so many new ways with decision-making possibilities and so an interaction with the citizens. But this is even if we look at the web itself, internet itself. Internet, as Diego said, has come to a communication level, but the next level, but this current level is dominated by the establishment, by the big governments, the organizations, the big companies, etc. Those are putting up the rules how we can interact with those systems. So it doesn't really belong to the user. It belongs to these platforms. Airbnb, Booking, all this kind of Amazon and so on. If you want to participate, you have to participate within those rules they put up, and they can change it from one day to another. YouTube changed the way you can earn money on YouTube from one day to another, and suddenly hundreds of thousands of people won't get the micropayments because they don't reach a specific level. So that the situation now with the web, that's called Web 2, and now what is coming is Web 3. Web 3 is a web where not the big corporations are dominating the services that are provided, but they are built upon crypto economics, and our organizations called DAOs, distributed autonomous organizations, that are actually owned and controlled through the crypto and the tokens by the users. That, for example, if you have a web where you can book hotels or travel, etc., or transportation, the ones that provide the value to that network are the people that own the hotels or drive the cars, etc. So as long as they participate, they can decide how it will work, developments, etc. And there are different kind of different ways to organize it. But as long as this system works and people participate, it will earn money and function, and people will be happy and provide services and develop. But if somebody tries to control it, they will probably, and when the decisions aren't good enough for the users, the professionals that participate, but also the end users. So it's a huge system. So they will retire, and the value of that service will go down or disappear because nobody will use it. So the Web 3.0 or Web 3 also provides the creators economy where people can, for example, artists can sell their NFTs directly. They can be the owner of the music. We don't need those big music corporations anymore, or art galleries or representatives, because and it's actually shown that there are thousands of artists, like graphical artists, that sell art, digital art, and can make a living of it, a good living, and which they could not do 2-3 years ago. But selling their art as NFTs, they get a connection with the buyers that like their art. They discuss their art. So this community is growing up, and they're the artists that own the art and make the money from the art. And I think it's very interesting for everybody should actually keep an eye on this and try to understand it, because the participants in the new web you can even make money playing games, but you can be a social moderator, or you can work professionally. But the Web 3 is also a revolution that will, I think, change a lot of what we have seen today and the economy that we are seeing today. That's absolutely important to keep attending and participating in.
Yeah, that's amazing and very, very disruptive. I would love to leave some time for questions, and if we have time, I come back with you. I would love to have your final thoughts on this. Would be great having the questions. We have a lot of questions from the audience. I don't know if I will read them, or if we can probably put there we have the first one. Is the city really necessary? After all, our relationships are very often limited to a few dozen people, and we visit places outside the city more often than areas of our own city. Very interesting question / comment. You guys have thoughts on this? Are the cities really necessary? A very philosophical question, but deep though.
Well, I think that Stefan is the expert being your urban planner, but I mean, in my humble opinion, cities will definitely always be necessary. We people love to live together. We love to share. We love to be in places with other people. We love to attend to events. And I think that cities will always be a place, and will be the place where humankind will live.
I think the question is absolutely brilliant, and I don't have a brilliant answer, but the reflection is that I agree to some point that we need places to unite socially, physically, and where we can experience things together, etc. So I think the city itself, maybe not the way it looks like today, but those kind of places are necessary for our well-being, because we like to feel or touch each other, etc. So maybe I think really though that the scale of cities around the world has gone, it's crazy. It's I read yesterday that I don't remember the number, but there will be so many thousands of cities with more than 1 million people, and I think in cities with 1 million people, we lose so much of the small scale part, and we generate so many problems. There's problems of traffic, there's a problem with energy consumption, there's a problem with within so many areas, and we lose so much time in moving around. So, and the value itself, I really think I would love to see a development towards a lot more smaller cities. Really, we have to take care of existing cities around the world. In rural areas, we have to provide it with high-speed telecommunication. We have to make it, because the cities grow, because especially in developing countries, because that's the only way, a place where people can make their living. So many people don't leave their villages and go to the cities because they want to. Really, they're not only looking for their economic benefits. So I think making possibilities to live in smaller cities and different scales depending on where in the world, but really that's the biggest challenge for the coming next 10, 20, 30 years. Absolutely. So it's a brilliant question. And I don't think it's the big cities we have, so big cities we have today, they're not necessary. They grow from the industrialization and that business model that's not valid anymore. So we have to rethink and also thinking from an circular economical perspective. We have to think of the way we use and consume and everything. And in a smaller city, I think that's a lot easier.
Yeah, and actually we are seeing a lot of disruption right in the urban planning. We are seeing entire buildings empty for different reasons. COVID, people are working from home, and you name it, right? So let's see if we have another question. Does the metaverse have any negative consequences in our life, social life? Stefan, what are your thoughts on that?
Okay, I start this time, and then Diego had to give his comments. I don't have an answer to this question either, but some thoughts. Okay, I think the metaverse is really providing ways to meet and work and create things together in a way that, for example, Teams and Zoom meetings don't. And I think it provides a social value above what we can currently experience through a video conference call, for example. So I think in that sense, it's positive. Our company, we Teleworks since 1.5 years ago. We had an office, but we don't have an office anymore. And actually, we meet like this, but I think to meeting once a week or being together in a virtual office, the metaverse, that would be a good social part, not to substitute the times that we meet physically to do other things. But I think, of course, you can abuse it. Being in a virtual world with your glasses 24 hours a day, I don't think too many people will do that. Although I think that people could wear their glasses where they can have augmented reality and mixed reality. It's something that you can actually do all the time, or you wake in day. So negative parts, we have to think about that. But of course, there are some parts for people that get isolated and only participate in the social world. But I think it's an additional level that provides more social life, but it's not a substitute for all physical social life.
Diego, can you imagine walking Buenos Aires in the metaverse?
Yeah, I would love to do that. Actually, I'm not authorized to reveal anything, but we're starting to speak with some metaverse companies, because we in Buenos Aires have a lot of really nice cultural places, and such as the Museum of Modern Art and the Cologne Theater, which is one of the best opera houses in the world, and we would love to show those places in the metaverse. Regarding of the negative consequences, honestly, it's just a personal reflection here, but I am 50 years old, so I was born in a world without color television, of course, without internet, and when phone and telephone calls were pretty expensive and not everywhere. So when I was 12 years old, my big brother gave me my first computer as a gift. Of course, it was not even an Intel computer, it was a Spectrum computer, a very, very old and primitive, one of the first personal computers. You need to record your information in a cassette. And I spent hours at night programming with that stuff, and I loved it. And my mother always said, "Hey, what are you doing all day looking at that screen? Your brains are gonna get fried. Go out, do something." Today, I see my wife speaking to my children. I have 3 daughters. What are you doing all day long with that telephone? Doing Instagram, get in touch with your friends. A small thing that happened here. The other day, I went to wake my girl up for going to school, 8 a.m. in the morning, and I see an iPad side on the bed with another girl sleeping there. So I just turned the iPad off. When my girl says, "Hey, Daddy, what happened with my friend?" I say, "Hey, Lola, you were sleeping on a video call." "Yeah, of course, we were sleeping together." So, I mean, I don't think that social life with all these advantages has gotten worse. On the contrary, I think that it has gotten changed. And we, from the perspective of our experience and see most times, we see these changes perhaps as negative. But I would like to put a question mark there. Of course, every change has the potential of becoming negative. But on all the advantages and technological improvements as we have in the last 30 years, this hasn't happened. So I would like to I would like to have faith and a good vision in the future. I think it will be better, not worse.
Yeah, the trade-off is always positive, right? Technology always helps, even though it left people behind. The trade-off was positive. Do we have any final question? How could the circular economy help small cities like mine that have less than 4,000 inhabitants? What are your thoughts? Probably, Stefan, you work with sustainability and smart cities, and probably can share a reflection on this.
Yeah, absolutely. I think circular economy, the idea of circular economy is that we should, whatever we put in to the loop, we should not get out of the loop, like waste or wastewater or clothes for landfills, etc., or construction material. The idea in a circular economy is that we recircle everything, both energy and physical materials and so on. So I think it's with 4,000 inhabitants, I think it's a volume enough to share. For example, if you have to demolish a building, you can recycle the building materials. I don't think it's really a question of limit of size and so on. So, and especially if 4,000 inhabitants, it should probably have rural areas around it to grow vegetables and be autosufficient in many things, which are very good for economy, for a circular economy, because we don't have to transport in material, and we don't have to we can wastes, for example, we can burn them to get heat, and so there's a lot of benefits. I think at any level of a city, and even individual level, if we live alone in a on the countryside, we can adapt the circular economy in so many different ways of our lives.
Okay, so we are on time. Diego, Stefan, thank you very much for your time. This was an amazing, and you're probably the authorities to talk about this. And I invite everyone to keep watching online this campus party. We have amazing speakers, and it's going to be great. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you so much, Sergio, and all of the viewers. Thank you so much.
Thank you.